Imagine this. You're holding a simple Jefferson nickel, something you've seen 1,000 times, something worth just 5 cents. But what if I told you that inside some of these nickels lies a hidden world? Mysterious minting errors, forgotten varieties, and rare wartime metals that can turn an ordinary coin into a life-changing discovery? Today, I'm about to reveal the top 3 Jefferson nickels that collectors chase like legends. Coins so rare, so shocking, so unbelievably valuable that spotting just one in your loose change could rewrite your entire coin-collecting journey. These aren't just nickels, they are silent time capsules from the U.S. Mint, carrying secrets that even seasoned experts often overlook. So brace yourself, because by the time you finish this video, you'll never look at a Jefferson nickel the same way again. And you might just realize that the greatest treasure of your life has been sitting in your pocket all along. The history of the 1972 Jefferson nickel begins long before the coin itself was minted, because its roots go back to the late 1930s, when the United States Mint wanted to replace the Buffalo nickel that had been in circulation since 1913 and had become difficult to strike with consistent detail. The Mint selected a design honoring Thomas Jefferson, one of the founding fathers and the 3rd president of the United States, and his famous home Monticello. The design by artist Felix Schlag became the standard nickel for decades, and by the time 1972 arrived, it had already been circulating for more than 30 years, making it a familiar part of American pocket change. The year 1972 was a time of great transition in the United States, as the nation was in the middle of the Vietnam War and social and economic changes were transforming the country. Coins minted during this era reflect a mixture of tradition and modern production techniques. The 1972 Jefferson nickel was struck at 3 facilities: the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint. Each mint used the classic Felix Schlag design featuring the portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse with the motto, "In God We Trust," and the word liberty placed in a distinctive script along with the date 1972. The reverse displays Monticello Jefferson's iconic home with the inscriptions E Pluribus Unum, Monticello 5 cents, and United States of America. The Philadelphia Mint struck the largest number of 1972 Jefferson nickels, producing hundreds of millions of pieces. Without a mint mark, they are easily identifiable and are the most common examples found in circulation. The Denver Mint also contributed a large mintage marked with a small d on the obverse. These coins are likewise widely available today and form a significant part of the coin's surviving population. The San Francisco Mint produced proof coins with an S mint mark intended. Specifically for collectors, these proofs were struck with polished dies and specially prepared planchets, giving them a mirror-like finish and a sharper level of detail compared to regular business strikes. Although the 1972 Jefferson nickel does not contain silver, unlike wartime nickels from 1942 to 1945, it still holds collectible value due to its place in the long-running Jefferson series and the variations that appear in different examples. Collectors often examine these coins for condition strike quality and any noticeable die varieties. Variety hunters sometimes search for errors such as off-center strikes, die cracks, and die clashing, which can create unique collectibles. Some 1972 nickels show full steps detail on Monticello, a feature highly prized by collectors because it indicates a strong and accurate strike that preserved the fine architectural lines of Jefferson's home. The circulation of the 1972 nickel also reflects the economic landscape of the early 1970s. Inflation was rising, and coins were being handled heavily in commerce, which means that high-grade examples today are less common. The wear and tear of daily use made pristine pieces rare, so collectors often turn to uncirculated rolls, mint sets, and proof sets to find the best preserved coins. The Jefferson nickel itself continued to be an important coin in American commerce as it was widely used for vending machines, transportation fares, and general transactions making. It was one of the most circulated denominations of the period. For a 2-hour documentary-style video, the story of the 1972 Jefferson nickel can expand into the broader history of the Jefferson series, exploring how Felix Schlag won the design competition, how the Mint modified his original designs, how technology changed coin production over the decades, and how the series evolved from 1938 up to the early 1970s. You can discuss the cultural impact of Jefferson as a figure, the architecture of Monticello, and how American coinage reflects national heritage and artistic choices. The script can also explore minting technology from planche preparation and die engraving to striking pressure and quality control to help viewers understand how each 1972 nickel was created. Another important part of the story is how the 1972 Jefferson nickel fits into the timeline of U.S. economic trends as coins circulated heavily and the mint worked to meet national coin demand. You can explain how mintage numbers varied by year, how the mint forecasted public needs, and how coin distribution impacted what people found in their pockets every day. The documentary can further highlight the collector market, discussing grading standards, third-party grading companies, population reports, and auction records. Although most 1972 nickels are common, some high-grade full steps, examples are quite valuable due to their scarcity and the difficulty of finding flawless strikes. By the end of this video, viewers will have traveled through American history, minting technology, artistic development, and numismatic tradition, all through the lens of the 1972 Jefferson nickel, showing how even a simple 5-cent coin holds an entire world of heritage craftsmanship and historical context within its small metal surface. As the story of the 1972 Jefferson nickel continues, it becomes clear that the coin is more than just a circulating piece of metal, because it represents a long chapter in the evolution of American coinage. The Jefferson nickel series had already become one of the most familiar designs in U.S. currency by the early 1970s, partly because its overall appearance had remained consistent for decades. Unlike other denominations that had undergone major redesigns or special commemorative issues, the nickel maintained strong continuity, making each yearly issue a reflection of subtle changes in minting technology and national trends rather than dramatic shifts in design. The 1972 nickel comes after a decade of significant developments at the United States Mint. The 1960s had brought rising production needs due to population growth and increasing commercial activity, and the Mint responded by upgrading machinery, improving die preparation methods, and refining planche quality. By 1972, these improvements allowed for more consistent strikes and higher production numbers, which explains why so many coins from this year were minted. This was particularly important because the nickel was one of the workhorses of American commerce, used in transportation services, payphones, vending machines, laundromats, and thousands of everyday purchases, ensuring that the nation needed a steady supply. Even though the coin appears simple at first glance, the process of creating a Jefferson nickel involves complex craftsmanship. The master hub contains the original details of the design and is used to create working dies that strike the coins. In 1972, die wear was still a major challenge because coins were produced in massive quantities and dies could deteriorate quickly, leading to weakness in the Monticello steps or flattening in Jefferson's hair details. Collectors today study these small details to distinguish high-quality strikes from average ones, and to classify varieties that arise when multiple dies produce slightly different appearances. This is why the 1972 series has several minor varieties, some of which are sought after by numismatists, who enjoy exploring the network of die lines and small variations that reveal how the Mint operated that year. The economic environment of 1972 also influenced the coin landscape. The United States had recently moved off the gold standard, and inflation was becoming a noticeable factor. Everyday Americans relied heavily on coinage for exact change, so durability became a primary consideration for the Mint. The history of the Jefferson nickel 1977 begins with understanding the long journey of the Jefferson Nickels series, which started in 1938, when the United States Mint replaced the Buffalo nickel with a new design that honored Thomas Jefferson and his famous home, Monticello. The design was created by Felix Schlag, and it remained mostly unchanged for decades, which gives every year, including 1977, a place within this long and important timeline of American coinage. The 1977 Jefferson nickel continues this tradition and represents a moment in United States numismatic history that reflects the economic conditions, minting technology, and public demand of the late 20th century. To fully understand the 1977 Jefferson nickel, we must first explore the background of the series. The Jefferson nickel was initially introduced to celebrate Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States, a founding father, and the principal author of the Declaration of Independence. His vision of American democracy and expansion was symbolized by Monticello, his Virginia home, which appears on the reverse of the coin. The original design remained unchanged for many years, making the annual mintages, especially in the 1970s, consistent and stable in appearance, though each year carries its own story. When we examine the year 1977, we step into an era defined by rising inflation shifts in coin circulation and increased activity at the United States Mint. The United States in 1977 was experiencing economic challenges, including inflation and changing patterns in coin usage, which impacted how many nickels were produced that year. The U.S. Mint produced Jefferson nickels in three primary locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. But in 1977, the Philadelphia and Denver mints handled the business strike production, while San Francisco focused on proof coins. For Philadelphia, the mint produced hundreds of millions of 1977 nickels without a mint mark, because the P-mint mark was not yet used on nickels during that period. For Denver, the coins were struck with the D mint mark and also in high quantities. This mass production reflects the continued reliance on the nickel for commerce in everyday American life during the late 1970s. Another key part of the 1977 nickel story is its composition. The Jefferson nickel had remained unchanged in metal composition since after World War II, containing 75% copper and 25% nickel. This sturdy composition made the nickel one of the most durable coins in circulation and helped it withstand heavy usage from vending machines, businesses, and the general public during a time when cash transactions were still dominant. Though the country was moving slowly toward electronic systems, coins like the 1977 nickel were still essential for transportation, parking meters, payphones, and daily purchases. Collectors value the 1977 Jefferson nickel, not because it is rare, but because it fits into a long-running series that many people enjoy collecting from year to year. The value of the 1977 nickel depends heavily on condition. Circulated examples typically carry only face value, but uncirculated examples, especially those graded at high mint state levels, like MS-65 or MS-66, can bring higher prices. Mint sets and proof sets from 1977 also remain popular among collectors. Proof coins made in San Francisco show higher detail, mirror-like fields, and frosted designs, making them desirable for people who want the best quality strikes of that year. When discussing the historical importance of the 1977 nickel, we must also look at how production technology was improving at the U.S. Mint. By the late 1970s, the Mint was using more advanced machinery with improved striking pressure and die preparation. This meant that many of the coins produced in 1977 had sharper details than coins made decades earlier. However, issues like die wear still occurred, especially given the massive mintage numbers, and this created many varieties of strike quality. Some coins show weak steps on Monticello, while others show more definition. The full steps designation remains one of the most sought-after features for Jefferson nickel collectors because it indicates a strong strike with complete detail on the steps of Monticello. The 1977 nickel also stands within the broader context of American culture. During the time the United States was experiencing political changes, technological advances, and shifts in lifestyle, the value of small change was higher relative to income than it is today, and coins like the nickel played a significant role in everyday transactions. Movies, buses, arcades, and vending machines all relied on coins, and this meant the U.S. Mint had a responsibility to maintain constant production. The nickel was especially important in many machines that required precise metal composition for the mechanisms to function properly. Moving deeper into the year 1977, we see that the U.S. Mint was also focused on efficiency and consistency. Mint employees worked to reduce die errors and improve the quality of business strikes, though some imperfections like die cracks, die clashes, and off-center strikes still occurred. These mint errors are interesting to collectors today because they add uniqueness to coins that were otherwise mass-produced. A 1977 nickel with a dramatic mint error can be far more valuable than a normal example, making this year an interesting one for error collectors. The Jefferson Nickels series itself was gaining more attention by the 1970s as hobbyists grew interested in completing full-date and mint mark sets. Coin collecting had become more popular after World War II, and by 1977, many families had albums where they placed nickels from each year. Children often began their numismatic journey by searching for Jefferson Nickels in pocket change. This created a nostalgic connection for many Americans who now look back at the 1977 nickel as part of their childhood memories. The design of the Jefferson nickel continued to gain appreciation in 1977, even though some people debated whether it should be replaced. The portrait of Thomas Jefferson remained iconic, showing his strong profile on the obverse, while Monticello on the reverse symbolized history, architecture, and Jefferson's legacy. The 1977 version retained the simplicity and classical influence of Schlag's original artwork, which made it instantly recognizable to anyone who handled it. The coin stood as a reminder of American ideals, even in daily transactions. To create a full understanding for this video, we also explore how the 1977 nickel compares to coins of earlier and later years. The early Jefferson nickels from the 1930s and 1940s, especially those with the wartime silver composition, are highly collectible. Later nickels from the 2000s changed design entirely when the Westward Journey series was introduced, but the 1977 nickel remains part of the traditional design era. Collectors often include the 1977 nickel as part of complete sets spanning multiple decades, which shows how important every date is even when the coin is common. Mintages for the 1977 nickel reached into the hundreds of millions, making it widely circulated across the country. This widespread distribution means that many people still encounter 1977 nickels in pocket change today. The coin's durability allows them to survive for decades without significant wear, and some lightly circulated examples still show strong detail. The continued presence of 1977 nickels in circulation makes them a fun discovery for new collectors who may not realize they are holding a coin nearly 50 years old. Another layer of history comes from examining the role of the U.S. Mint itself. The 1970s were a decade of modernization and expansion for the Mint. New equipment and improved quality control systems helped streamline production and build consistency in coin output. The 1977 nickel reflects this era of technological progress while still maintaining the classical design that generations of Americans recognized. The improvement in minting standards meant that high-grade examples of 1977 nickels are easier to find than earlier dates, though truly perfect strikes are still uncommon. For collectors who seek high-grade examples, the focus on steps at Monticello becomes extremely important. The full steps designation is given by coin grading companies only when all steps are clear and uninterrupted. This requires a sharp strike and minimal die wear, because millions of 1977 nickels were produced. Many dies wore down quickly, and coins struck later in the die's life show softer details. This gives collectors a challenge as they search for high-quality pieces among such a large population. The story of the 1980 Jefferson nickel begins long before the coin itself was minted, and to truly understand its significance, we have to travel back to the origins of the entire Jefferson nickel series, which started in 1938 when the United States Mint decided to replace the Buffalo nickel with a new design featuring the third president of the United States, Thomas Jefferson, and his iconic home, Monticello. This design was created by Felix Schlag, whose artwork won the National Design Competition, and his portrait of Jefferson has remained one of the most recognizable images on American coinage for decades. By the time we reach 1980, the Jefferson nickel had already been in circulation for more than 40 years, and the design had become a familiar sight in everyday American commerce. The year 1980 itself was a period of transition for the United States, with a shifting economy, rising inflation, and changing national priorities. Coins, such as the nickel, were still heavily used in vending machines, buses, and daily transactions, making each year's minting important for keeping up with circulation demand. In 1980, the U.S. Mint produced Jefferson nickels at two major facilities, the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. The Philadelphia Mint coins did not carry a mint mark at this time, as the P Mint mark was not added to circulating nickels until 1984. So a Jefferson nickel with no mint mark from 1980 is from Philadelphia, while the Denver Mint coins carry the D Mint mark. Both mints produced these nickels in huge quantities, which makes them very common today in circulated condition. But certain examples in flawless condition are highly valued by collectors. The composition of the 1980 Jefferson nickel followed the same copper-nickel formula that had been used since 1946, when the wartime silver alloy was discontinued. Each 1980 nickel is made of 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving the coin its distinctive silvery appearance. This composition was chosen because it was durable, resistant to wear, and ideal for the demands of modern machines that required precise metallic properties. When examining the design of the 1980 Jefferson nickel, we first see the obverse, which features the left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson. His facial features, the flow of his hair, and the details of his coat are all important elements that collectors look at when evaluating condition. Above Jefferson's head appears the motto, "In God We Trust," and to the right of his portrait is the word liberty, followed by the year 1980. Felix Schlag's initials, FS, which were added in 1966, continue to appear at the base of the portrait. The clarity of these details can influence the grading of the coin, especially on uncirculated examples, where even minor imperfections can significantly affect value. The reverse shows Jefferson's home Monticello, a key architectural symbol of early American history. The building is shown in a frontal perspective, with its columns, dome, and steps, all carefully sculpted by Schlag. The word Monticello appears directly under the building, and below it, the denomination 5 cents. At the top of the reverse is the phrase E pluribus unum, and along the bottom, United States of America. The sharpness of the steps on Monticello is one of the most important aspects for collectors. Coins with full steps, meaning all the horizontal steps at the base of the structure, are fully visible, without breaks, are considered premium quality and can command high prices, especially from the 1980 year. The mintage of 1980 nickels was extremely high because the United States economy required a steady supply of circulating coins. The Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of nickels, while the Denver Mint also struck a large quantity. This high volume means that most 1980 nickels hold minimal value in worn condition, but because of the sheer number of coins struck, there is always the possibility of finding die varieties errors and high-grade survivors that attract collector interest. Error coins from 1980 are especially fascinating and include examples such as off-center strikes, where the design is shifted toward one side of the plancher, clipped planchers, where a portion of the metal blank is missing, and die cracks or die breaks, where raised lines appear due to wear in the minting equipment. Some 1980 nickels also show weak strikes or partial steps on Monticello, which can affect their market desirability. A sharply struck example with full steps is far more valuable, and collectors often pay premiums for MS66 or MS67 graded coins from either mint. To understand the historical importance of the 1980 nickel, we should also consider what was happening in America during that time. The late 1970s and early 1980s were marked by rising inflation, increasing interest rates, and changes in the way Americans used cash, and coins. Credit cards were just beginning to gain popularity, but everyday transactions still relied heavily on physical coins. This meant the nickel remained essential in vending machines, arcade games, parking meters, payphones, and transportation systems. The durability and consistency of the Jefferson Nickels design ensured its continued usefulness. Another significant aspect of the 1980 Jefferson nickel is its place in the larger timeline of the series. The 1980s marked the final decade. Before major design changes arrived, in 2004 and 2005, the U.S. Mint temporarily changed the reverse design for the Westward Journey series, meaning that coins like the 1980 nickel represent the final years of the uninterrupted classic Monticello design before the modern era. Collectors often view these pre-2000s nickels as part of the traditional era of American coinage. The survival rate of high-grade 1980 nickels is surprisingly low, considering the huge mintage, because the coins entered circulation immediately and saw decades of use. Finding a coin with minimal bag marks, bright luster, and full steps is uncommon. This is why some examples have sold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars in high-end certified grades, especially those with flawless surfaces or exceptional strike quality. From a historical perspective, the Jefferson nickel has always represented stability in American coinage, and the 1980 issue is no exception. It reflects the mint's ability to produce coins efficiently and reliably, while also maintaining artistic detail and functional durability. Every 1980 nickel you see today has passed through countless hands and may have been part of daily life for more than 40 years, traveling across states, through businesses, and through generations of Americans. The Jefferson nickel design honors both the legacy of Thomas Jefferson and the neoclassical architecture of Monticello. Jefferson's influence on American history, particularly his role in writing the Declaration of Independence and promoting education and innovation, adds a deeper meaning to the coin itself. Holding a 1980 nickel is not only holding a piece of metal, but also a small reminder of the nation's third president and the history that shaped modern America. Collectors appreciate the 1980 nickel not only for its historical context, but also for the challenge of finding high-quality examples. The search for full-step specimens, especially from Philadelphia, can be a rewarding pursuit, and many numismatists spend years searching through rolls, mint sets, and bulk lots looking for that perfect strike. The thrill of the hunt is what keeps the hobby alive, and the 1980 nickel plays an important role in that experience. As we continue exploring the story of the 1980 Jefferson nickel, we can also look at its role in modern collecting communities. Today, online marketplaces, coin shows, and grading services have all contributed to renewed interest in coins. From the late 20th century, as collectors rediscover these pieces, coins that were once considered too modern to be valuable are now becoming important additions to collections, especially when preserved in exceptional condition. In conclusion, the 1980 Jefferson nickel is much more than a simple everyday coin. It is a product of American history, economic demand, artistic tradition, and numismatic evolution. Each coin carries its own story shaped by decades of circulation changes in the minting process and the hands of millions of people. Though common in worn condition, the 1980 nickel holds a special place in the long-running Jefferson Nickel series and continues to attract the attention of collectors, historians, and everyday coin enthusiasts alike. Its legacy remains strong as part of a design that has endured for generations, and the charm of discovering a well-preserved 1980 nickel continues to inspire collectors across the world.